Dublab.
Hello everyone, this is your host Ale Cohen here on Dublab Radio. Today we have a very special guest, someone I've followed for many years. His name is Ian Broudie, behind projects such as The Lightning Seeds, Care, and many others, including Big in Japan. Also had a hand on so many other works, including bands like Echo and the Bunnymen, dozens, the 3 o'clock here in Los Angeles, and dozens of other artists, too many to mention here. But Ian Broudie joined me in conversation from London, where he just put out a new record under The Lightning Seeds, a band known for its beautiful songwriting, beautiful pop songs, very lush production. And today Ian is going to be talking to me about his new album, See You in the Stars, that just came out. We visit some of his previous works. We talk about his current album and also his overall take on music. Thank you, Ian, for joining me. And for those out there, enjoy this conversation on Dublab Radio. Hello, Ian.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm okay, actually. I'm in Portobello Road, actually, in London. And we've been having a heat wave here, so it's been very, very hot.
I heard about that.
It broke, and now it's just normal. It's good. It's good, really. It's back to sort of, just hot.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like LA now anymore.
No, well, it didn't. Yeah, it's different. I don't mind being hot in LA. You're meant to be hot in LA. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
You're not meant to be hot in London. It's meant to be raining or something,
Exactly. No, I was so excited when I saw the news of a new album by The Lightning Seeds. Obviously, I follow your work over the years, not only as a songwriter, as a quote unquote producer, which I say quote unquote because I know that the word producer is a very loaded word for someone that.
Well, I'm a very reluctant producer. I haven't produced anything for a long time. I try and avoid it wherever I can, and I've managed to avoid it for a lot of years.
And yes, absolutely. And I think what I appreciate of that, I think with that, if I am correct in my assessing, is that it's not just a matter of not wanting to assume that role, but it's more of almost a philosophy, right? That is more about collaboration. It's about more working with people than you directing.
Well, it took me a long time to realize. So the first band that I ever kind of, I suppose, produced was Echo and the Bunnymen, and they were my friends, so there were no barriers. So I used to play guitar and I'd write some of the middle eights and I'd do I was just in the band while we were recording. So my idea of production was that, really, it's like I was in the band, for that period doing whatever needed to be done. And then later I realized, well, actually, that's not what production is. And I learned, so when I was doing something like The Coral many years later, it was a very different thing, even though I put a lot of my heart and soul into that band as well. But, and then I thought, actually, I don't mind when I can just do you just get together to make a great record, and that's a collaboration. So I'll only work in a collaborative way now.
Yes.
If I do decide to produce things, it won't be production. It might be called production, but it'll be a collaborative thing. And if I feel like writing or playing guitar, I not want to have one hand tied behind my back.
Exactly. Not having to obey by the restrictions of who is the producer, who is the songwriter.
More like a hip hop way of producing, where you make the record,
Exactly. With this new record, See You in the Stars, I hear a progression. I hear a new sound, but also the Ian Broudie identity is heavily in there as well. It's obvious. It's obvious. It's your work.
I can't get away from me. However,
exactly. We're all stuck. We're all stuck with ourselves. In a way. But I was very pleasantly surprised how refreshing it is. It feels very personal. Feels like it's a love letter to loved ones in a way. That's how it
That would
feels
be
like.
true. I think that would be true. It's quite a personal record. They all are really pure, Life of Raleigh, but um, I think it's. When I was recording it, I came to a sort of a moment. I've got to stop looking at the camera. I came to a moment, and I kind of felt like, say, a song like "Sunshine" really reminded me of what I used to do, say in the 80s. Quite, it had that feel into it, and I thought I'm going to go with that. And then I found like a lot of the songs were almost like a greatest hits of me, but written by me. So then I was doing a track called Green Eyes, and I felt like lyrically it was like a postscript to Pure,
Yes.
and then harmonically it felt a bit. So then I decided to shadow the little trumpet things and take little pieces of what might remind you of Pure. So there's a lot of that going on in that track, and all the tracks in certain, probably more subtle ways. So probably I'm the only one who would totally get that. But it's kind of like a postcard to myself, really, from all these different places.
Yes. Well, you mentioned that feeling from the 80s that you mentioned. What is that feeling? I'm interested in hearing because you've been there's something very much about you and your sound that you hear over and over, even in bands like Care, that there's that almost baroque type of sense of melody that you have, but also a lushness. But it's not the lushness that comes from proficiency, but the lushness that comes from coming from punk in a way, right? It's
Well,
almost like you built it after they swept the floor.
yeah, I think I'm a funny mix of that kind of thing. So I really want everything to be melodic, and I feel like I want everything to feel positive, even though it might be sad. It's positive. It's not sad, miserable. It's sad, positive. And I think maybe all my aesthetic, my life, in a way, and music, but also life, I think, is those years where punk was happening and where it was the less. I've said this in interviews before, but the lesson that I've learned at that time, the first Ramones album made me throw away all the records I had and start again. And it was a gateway into New York and Patti Smith, Television, Talking Heads. You know, I was I was more influenced by that than I was the Sex Pistols and the English stuff, which I liked, and I saw the Sex, and it was good. But there was something about when I was in my first band, which was more of a performance art thing than punk, really. But and I love the Velvets with Andy Warhol, and I think the thing that really came to me then was I was someone who'd sat in my room and played guitar and stuff like that, but I felt like I have said this in interviews before, and I'll say it again because it's just true. So I just came to the realization that if you have an idea and it's a good idea, even if you can't do it very well, it's always a good idea. And however well you do it or don't do it, it will never stop being a good idea. But if you don't have an idea, however good you are, and however well you do something that isn't a good idea, it will never become a good idea. So I'm always focused on an idea that I can, if I write a song, I'll sing a melody into my phone, but then I'll talk to myself and say the idea and say what I'm kind of, I'll try and explain it to myself. And I feel like the word pop's been used around us a lot. And it's a strange word because it means something horrible and something good. So, and the meaning of pop changes over the years. I hated when I had the tag of perfect pop. Made me want to be sick, really. It's like there's a real difference between searching for perfection and the pursuit of excellence. And I would never search for perfection, but I am always trying to push a boundary and get it better. So, and even though that sounds a subtlety, it's a universe of difference, So I would say that, and I would say that the way like pop art is like a moment captured in an explosive way that you then put on the wall. That's how I want my songs to be. Really, that's kind of what I've always wanted out of it, and I've never succeeded really in capturing the moment properly, which is why you do another one, which is perfect. That's why you do something else.
Exactly.
And I did with, I think the way I've sung on this album, it's funny because what you said is right. It's like different but the same, or the same but different, which is kind of what you want, really, I suppose. But it's like, I feel like listening to it now that I've given it a bit of space, it's not innocent because obviously I'm at a different part of my career and I'm in my 60s, but I feel like there's no barriers being put. I'm talking quite directly, and I think I love Buddy Holly, and a lot of that seems to have come out in the way I'm singing. I think it's kind of sorry about that. It's
Okay.
kind of coming out in a little bit of a, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of wide-eyed, and I'm trying to talk directly and not let things get in the way.
Yeah.
Maybe.
In a way, if I have to speak as I know that your son plays in part of the Lightning Seeds, and as a parent, I have kids that are a bit younger. Mine, I have teenagers, but there's something I think that maybe a return to another age, a younger age, now that some of the the things of adulthood had lifted, right? Sometimes even financial responsibilities or things you have to carry to make ends meet, and maybe you're in a place in your life, if for what I gather, that you're like, I don't need to do those things. I'm only doing my thing just for the pure sense of accomplishing what I want to express.
Well, I'm a worrier and I'm an overthinker, so I'm never quite free of that stress.
Of course.
But you are right, Ian. Maybe sometimes I'm sure you're the same with your children. Sometimes you want to play them some music, and when they get it, you hear it as a new thing because they're enjoying it, and it gives you a new love of something. And I think maybe with Riley being involved, there is an element of that. I want him to experience playing in front of thousands of people, and I want him to, and it's almost like, look, this is, so in a way that maybe has reawakened my quality control of myself in a way.
Yes.
And made me care and want to. I feel like I kind of got distracted, not distracted by musically, but I feel like I've let myself drift down the divisions. And now, about 3 or 4 years ago, I decided, no, I want to be excellent. I want to be excellent. I want to have an excellent band, and I'm trying to push back to the Premier League.
Yes, yes.
And if I make it, great. And if I don't, it's worth the effort. Is the thing to enjoy, really. When you're young, you write songs and you get wind in your sails of your career, and people in record companies and people fans, and everyone puts an energy into you, and you sort of are pushed up by that. You're buoyed by that, really, and it brings the best out of you. It's inspiring, and you want to be the best, and you live and breathe it, And then later on, that's difficult to feel like that way again. So I think you have to, it might be a bit cryptic, but I think you have to, I feel like I'm a little kid and I have a burning ambition, but I also don't want to fight a war that I won 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't want to refight it,
Yeah.
So in a way, I feel much more in control of setting my own parameters. I think when you're young, you're buying a lottery ticket and you're hoping you're the Beatles, and you're probably not. And now I know I'm not the Beatles. So it's a different situation.
to,
You
there's someone here in LA that thinks you are, but that's the difference. That's a different story.
but you know what I mean. You kind of know who you are, and you know you're not like going in putting a chip on the roulette wheel. You're kind of going, no, I'm happy to be me,
Yeah.
and let's see where me can go.
Yes. Well, there's an element of pop music in it's a loaded term, right? When we say pop music, but there's an element of rock or pop music that is almost a young man's sport in a way, right? And how do we carry that as we move on our careers? And you said you're 60, and
63.
and that how do you you're like, what am I doing this guitar thing and thinking I'm the Beatles, after I'm
Well, no, I don't feel like that. I feel like no one says. I think just after the Lightning Seeds a long time ago, I felt like, do should I stop that? And then I felt like no one says to Picasso, "Oh, mate, you've been painting for years. Stop it," or
yeah.
any other art form. I'm not saying I'm Picasso, obviously, but even a paint, any kind of a portrait artist, or you don't say, or a Peter Blake, you don't. No one says you should stop that now.
Yeah.
And I think musicians get a hard time, or out of compared to an actor, compared to an artist, compared to a sculptor. They get it's like we're the bottom level in a funny way,
Yeah.
and yet we're not really, but we are.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's because we're all just in a dream somewhere. So we just want to do the song. We don't really, we almost like we're like vulnerable adults in some ways. Do you know what I mean? We're just busy writing a song, and we don't want to know about the other stuff.
Yes. It seems music tends to. This is something I read of all things in a marketing study. That one of those things you get a PDF and you read about it, but it says that music it hits directly at our emotions, right? Which is true. It's a very emotional thing, and it seems like that feeling of the musician having to stop doing it after a certain age. Maybe there's a feeling that we shouldn't be having emotions after a certain age. Maybe you shouldn't just be out there feeling it on the stage, and it's an absurd idea in a way.
Well, I think it's a different world now. I feel like that about journalists to a degree. You think, God, you've been reviewing records for 40 years. Surely you could move on from that and write a book or something. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like that about a lot of stuff. But I remember when I was young, and I remember when I was young. When I was younger. Yeah, I remember my father reading the newspaper, and he said, "The Rolling Stones are doing a tour. They're all 30. What are they doing? Why are they doing that? Grow up." And I think at that time it was very much like that. You can't be in a group when you're 30, But now Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney's headlining Glastonbury at, I don't know, 800 years old or whatever he is, and in his 80s, I suppose. And, and it feels like, I saw Leonard Cohen towards the end of his life. It was fantastic. I really feel that it's a different world now. And when Dylan and the Beatles changed pop music from a throwaway thing into a more artistic form of song, that whole thing that you're talking about went with that, really. And I don't think I'd ever stop.
Yes.
Being me.
Yeah.
And, I don't think, there are people who, are in a band when they're 18, they have massive number one records, they achieve what they want to achieve, and by the time they're 23, they're done. I've never been one of those people. There's other people who you just know when you meet them, they're going to be doing that forever,
Yeah.
I don't know which I'd rather be, but I don't have the choice. I wouldn't mind just being the guy who did it, bang, and he's gone. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe it goes to what you said. Maybe they did achieve what they said to achieve, and what keeps you going is what you said before. You just feel that you haven't captured it yet, and that keeps you moving to the next one. In a sense.
Well, I think the world's changed, hasn't it, massively. And there's such great music around now,
Yes.
and you know, and there probably was then. So it doesn't affect there being great music. But I'd say, if anything, it's a bit less vocational. So when I was first wanting to be in a band, there was no route to being in a band. There was no college you could go to. There was no, you just had to make it up as you went along. And I'm a product of that chaos, really.
Yeah.
Now you can go and study, and a lot of the people who work with us have gone to college and gone to Paul McCartney's school, Lipper in Liverpool, and they're amazing and they know how to do it. Where I don't know how to do it, but I just get there somehow. They know how to do it, and in some ways I'm in awe of them. But that's just not the world I came from, So I'll
Yeah.
always fumble about, really, and rely on serendipity and kind of happy accidents and stuff like that. And and in going back to what you said, because it's vocational, I'm never going to stop. Whereas I think if it's more career, and you've gone to college and you've achieved your career, then it's more likely to have an end point.
Yeah. Yeah. In g- would you consider something I found striking in one of the lyrics of the record is in the track "These Foolish Dreams," where you have when you say, "I don't have to pray, I have to believe every day." And that is something that it kept me thinking, and that is the one of the parts I had the record on repeat for the past few days, and that phrase kept coming back to me. And would you consider yourself in a way a religious person, or would you consider yourself someone more pragmatic, more in your approach to everything you do?
I would say I'm a religious person who doesn't believe in religions.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not pragmatic, and I'm definitely emotional and led by that, but I don't really, I don't
Yeah.
really aspire to religion that way. I mean,
Yeah.
that song, is what I said earlier about So Much Grace. It is saying, you know, to a degree, am I just becoming a worse version of myself every year? I'm saying hope, lives in young men's hearts, it's the
Yeah.
key to their charm, puts the strength in their arms, but I just still believe,
You got to carry it every day.
I just, every day is a new day. And I just, I don't have to, I just believe. And I think that's the same answer that I've just given you. It's like, I'm someone, I just believe.
Yeah. No, it's when I was reading one of your quotes where you said you feel every morning you wake up with a sense that something's going to go horribly wrong, and then the day goes by and it's fine, and I think I can identify myself in that sentiment.
I'm sorry that you can.
It's just gotta live with it. Yeah, maybe there's something there that why I identify with your music over the years so much. Yeah. When it comes more now, talking a bit more about the process of making the record in a more technical or more down to the how to do it. What's been your evolution in terms of the production of it? I know that you have your own studio, and that gives you the luxury to experiment, to try things, to have things hardwired in the way that you know things are done in a very personal way.
So I think when I made Pure, I pretty much did it at home. And the second album with Sense and Life O'Reilly, I did in my brother's front room. So I've always been do it yourself before, but it was harder because there weren't computers really. And samplers had just been invented. But so they've always been homemade, my albums. And then after the Sense album, I had no record contract, and I set up a studio in Liverpool, and I was producing bands, and I made most of Jollification, just even though I didn't have a record contract. And I wasn't really looking for one, but I was just making my songs. So again, it was like a clubhouse for me more than a studio. It was just a place for me to be comfortable. And so I kind of come from that, really. I've come from that. And now I think most people get to studios, your classic studio that from the 70s or 80s, they had to be places where a heavy metal band could walk in, or a folk artist, or a classical session, and they had to be able to accommodate all those things.
Yes.
So inherently, there's a kind of a blandness to a studio. It's a blank canvas, but it's a place that you can make your own. And the difference now, because people have their own places, whether it's all sorts of people, Jack White, whoever it might be, they have it personalized in that to set up for them. For me personally, I spent a lot of time this album on my own, on the top of my house, in the middle of the night, and I never want to do that again. I used to like having people around, really, and when it was tape machines, you can never go back to that. It's like a box that you can't shut. So I will always use the computer, and I will always, but I think I don't want it to be as solitary. And yet, when I started and I did Pure, it was completely solitary. It was on my own. And then it felt like I got to a point where it was less solitary during Jollification, and other people were around, and I enjoyed it a lot more. And now I seem to have reversed it. So I think if I do another album, which I think I would like to, now that I feel like this album is in some ways a pathway back, and I feel I'm at 70% and I could be better. But then I felt like that since I was 10. So, it doesn't really mean much, but, and in the end, they just are what they are. And I'm very proud of moments of this album. I think it's probably my favorite album that I've done. Maybe not, but it's certainly up there. Maybe there's songs that are, Pure that I might not ever equal. I don't know, the songs that I treasure more that I've made. But as an album, I think this is it's quite coherent, really. Do you know what I mean? It's quite coherent, and a lot of what I'm writing about is personal to me. And I've expressed what I want to express, I think, So in that way, it's successful.
Yes.
But it still feels like I haven't quite nailed it, as to what I would like to do.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good way to put it. Because it did feel very refreshing as a listener, as a fan. I was like, wow, this was such a big gift to have when it landed on my inbox.
You know what? The nicest thing that one of my friends asked me, he said, could you send me the album? I'd really love to hear it. And he's someone I respect, and he's a writer, but he doesn't write to do with music. And I said, yeah, no, I'll send it to you. And I'm usually not too bothered about what people say about it. I'm more judging their reactions and all. But he said the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. And he sent me a note back, and he said, I'd like to think that you sound on this album like if Buddy Holly had experienced the Beatles, he might have sounded like this. And that was the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. And I was like, I wish someone had said that in print.
That's a very good compliment.
I thought, God, so that crystallized my ambition. I thought the next album has to be that.
Yeah. Wow. With that, do you have any plans on touring, coming to Los Angeles?
Do you know, I'd absolutely love to come to Los Angeles, and we're talking with the kind people at BMG and with our agent, our American agent. We've never really played in the States. Originally when the first couple of albums were out, I didn't really play live. I hadn't really got to that stage yet. And then afterwards, I don't think Sony really put the albums out in America really. But so it's been, as usual, a strange career, backwardsy stuff. But I'm hoping that there will be some way that we can get out and play some shows, because, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. And we're really good now live, I think. I wasn't that great for a while.
Yeah.
But I think right now, I love my band. I love the people in the band. There's a lovely feeling in it. And it would be really nice to come and do that.
Yeah. Well, we gotta do something about that. We gotta bring you here.
I have to get someone to book us.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Ian.
Really
It's
nice to
really
talk to you, and thank you for the support over the years. Then, and thank you for enjoying. It's very nice to meet you.
no,
Chat.
well, same here. I'm truly touched. I get the goosebumps. I was very nervous because I am, really your work has really touched me profoundly over the years, and it's a true honor to have you here talking to
We'll
me.
hopefully meet you in person in LA at some point.
Yeah,
Hopefully I will get out there soon. So,
fantastic. Well,
great.
thank
All
you.
right,
All
take
right.
care.
Have a good day.
Dublab.